Uncle Ron stuff. I know this is episode 10, part whatever, and I'll add it when I post it. But more thoughts about thoughts, and I keep exploring stuff. Expectations. Uh, Expectations. Uh, uh, my mom, I think she was dominated by expectations. Whatever she did or what people did around her, she had a preconceived expectation of what it was going to happen, what whatever, some sort of expected results, some sort of expected or desired results from something. And unfortunately, she was disappointed most of the time. People rarely did what she expected them that they were going to do, or she wanted them to do, or she would like cook something, you know. And then it was very important to have some sort of feedback or verification that it was the most delicious whatever that you'd ever had in the whole world. And if you didn't say that and reaffirm her expectations, she was disappointed. So expectations and disappointment, and we have that. That is an element, in human relations and between peoples. It's hard to get out of the expectation aspect of dealing with others. You want them to respond in a certain way, and when they don't, you get disappointed. Disappointments and that's not a feeling. That's a mind state. I think. I don't think disappointment. What does that feel like? I don't think I've ever felt disappointment. I get aware of, well, I'm disappointed. It's an aspect maybe of sad. I really wanted her to, think of me and do this or that, and it didn't happen. I'm disappointed. Again, I don't know. Expectations can ruin follow on whatever. If you interacting with someone and you have an expectation of what they're going to do next and they don't do it, then you get disappointed, and that impacts what you may do next. It would be best if you don't have any expectations. I often say that I don't have expectations, and by and large, interaction with other people, I don't. I don't. Uh, if I'm doing something in the hardware world in reality, yeah, I do have expectations. I'll tell you a good example is if I'm soldering water pipes together and trying to repair a leak or something. When I complete my repair, I really have a really strong expectation it's not going to leak. I can look at the solder job and I go, well, that looks really good. I think it's going to be okay. I've done all the prep work and everything, and but I still have a trust issue, and so I'm not 100% confident. My expectation is it won't leak, but I'm still a little bit of uncertain about it. My confidence level is not 100%. All these words I've used before in various aspects of thoughts about thoughts, but expectations with other people. It's really good if you don't have any. I say I'm non-transactional, and what does that mean? Ways back, I was designing some software, and the best way I could think about it was transactions. And a transaction is, let's think about it in terms of money. a transaction. You go to a store, you find what you want, you take it up to the counter, you put out money, and in return you get that item. A transaction. It a transaction occurred. Uh, involved, two ends of a completed task. Think of it as a task. Okay. Um, uh, I'm non-transactional with other human beings. I don't. When I do something, I don't really expect anything from the other party. That's the best way. And like if I do something for people, they don't have to pay me back. When I was younger, there was reference to an idea that in relationships there was some sort of balancing thing going on. Did he give me as much as I gave him, or did she? Is she doing her fair share, or am I pulling too much of the load? That kind of a balancing thing, and I think that occurs early on. I don't know everybody has that or not. I'm aware that at one time I did think like that for a while, and then I realized it didn't really make any sense. You're trying to measure apples and oranges or something. My mother said that, she loved me a lot. She did my laundry. That was her form of love, was what you do for other people. Well, she didn't emotionally love me that I was aware of, but she did things for me. And that was her definition, if you will, of love, was doing things for others. Unfortunately, she had expectations that I would then do something in return. And when I didn't do it, because I couldn't read her mind, we're not mind readers. You know that. We're not mind readers. When you're interacting with other people and you've done something and you really expect something in return, they couldn't read your mind. They don't know that, you would really like for them to kiss you now or to do something, whatever you thought would be a follow on to the transaction, the interaction, the transaction. And you're disappointed. And now the disappointment impacts follow on. So I'm not transactional. I don't have expectations. I don't expect others to do necessarily anything. I'm just open, and whatever they do or not do, that's the end of it. I don't have a weighing mechanism. It's not a seesaw. It's not a teeter totter where they're up and I'm down and they're up and I'm down and we're swing back and forth until we find some sort of mutually beneficial, assured uh, uh, level of the saw between us. We're sitting at equal heights or on a seesaw. Um, it it Over the years, I've been aware that the seesaw idea or weighing in your mind. Well, I do more for him than he does for me, or you know, interesting concept. And I throw it in here because of expectations and other things. I've found some people are takers. They'll take and take and take and take and take, and you give and give and give and give and give, and uh, if you're non-transactional like me, even I, after a while, realize I'm being used. You know, I didn't have expectations of anything, so I just keep whatever. And but at some point, there's a limitation, even for me, that whoa, it's just too much. They're using me, and but back on expectations, I think it is human to, in everything, that you have an expectation. Maybe it's a program thing. When you learn something, and like in the real world, if you throw a ball up in the air, it's going to come back down again. That you already know that gravity's going to pull it back down. That's not really an expectation. You just know it's to be the case, but that's what you expected to happen, and it did. Okay, so you're not disappointed because the ball came back down the ground. You knew it was going to come back down to the ground. But with humans or interactions with other people, it's hard not to have an expectation. You wanted them to do something in return, and then when they don't do it, you get disappointed. It's best if you don't have an expectation, especially in human relationships. Uh, Hard to do. Uh, I just know you ought to think about expectations. I'm sure you do it. We all do it. Some people are dominated by expectations. You know, I made a comment one time about a guru sitting up on top of a mountain, and people would go up there and say, "Well, tell me the secret. What is all this about? Give me a one sentence phrase that explains why I'm here and what I'm supposed to be doing." And I was always disappointed. I woke up every day and looked on the wall, figuring God would have written there on the wall with his finger like he did on the Ten Commandment tablets for Moses, what the Ten Commandments were, that God would write on the wall, and he would tell me what I was supposed to be doing. Like, what are you supposed to do with your life? Well, you're supposed to do this, or you're supposed to do that, and disappointed. Every day, nothing. No. Now, in retrospect, it is clear that the universe was trying to tell me things. I just didn't know how to listen or read them. They're there all the time. There's clues, lots and lots of clues. But you got to be open to be able to read them and to make some sense out of it, and maybe even follow them a little ways to see where they lead you. That's off the sidetrack. Expectations. Expectations. I don't know how expectations form. It, Expectations. Maybe as a child you develop expectations. Um, I don't know. Expectation. Given a certain action, there should be a certain results. We are cause and effect dominated. That is programmed. It obviously is more than that. There is an awful cause and effect aspect to reality, to the here and now. Um, there's not much way around that, cause and effect. However, it is a program concept. I mean, it applies in lots of conditions and situations, but not in all. But with cause and effect, when something, the cause, you do have an expectation of what the effect will be. You know, uh, Programmed again, and we're taught a lot of rules and regulations and things like that. And if you do this, this is going to happen. Okay, I talked about it before about consequences of your action. Yes and no. When we have cause and effect, you know that if you do this, that's going to happen. Some people don't necessarily have that's going to happen in a very big picture sense. Behaviors. Uh, they've managed to do something or other, and it was not what they did was not in the bounds of social norm or legal norm or whatever way, but they got away with it. Nothing happened. So they go, well, the cause and effect is not as what I. So they can broaden what they do, the causes, and have an expectation that the effect won't matter much. And people can get into trouble with that, especially in criminals. They They started off like stealing small items out of a store, and they got away with it, you know. And then later, under other situations, they start stealing bigger items. They didn't get it. They got away with it. What was the effect? Really nothing. Benefited me. Okay, cause and effect. Part of that, expectations. What's the effect going to be? What is the what happens if I do this or that? Uh, expectations, expectations. Um, what is my expectation on this? I don't know that I have any. In fact, I was thinking the other day, and it's just confession time again. I might like hearing myself talk. And I don't, that's strange. I'm not sure why. Why am I actually enjoy doing these. And I'm not sure, you know, I think one time, you ever hear about pirate radio? There are these AM, FM radio stations. Some guy gets a transmitter and he sets up known as a pirate radio station. And broadcast range might be relatively limited, but he doesn't have a license. He's not licensed by the FCC to have a strong transmitter signal in a certain frequency. But he starts up his own radio station and he'll play music and he'll talk about stuff. In fact, maybe it has a specific agenda, or that he wants to talk about religion. He wants to talk about God all the time. And I think there are some pirates that do that, or they want to talk political, or they want to talk nonsense like I do. Perhaps I'm just a pirate radio station. I'm an underground pirate broadcaster. Interesting, with YouTube and the internet, anybody can be a pirate transmitter. You know, what is my expectation on that? I don't know where it's going to. I just broadcasting. I'm just sending it out there. Do I have an expectation of anything happening from it? No. No. Uh, so what's the point? I don't know exactly. And I don't care. You go, well, shouldn't there be a point? Why are you doing it? I don't know. I find that okay with me. I'm okay on that. A lot of things I do, I don't know why I do them. I just do. Um, you go, well, that's kind of silly and not very mature. You know. Well, I know that it's within some bounds. I'm not doing anything illegal. I don't think I'm hurting anybody. I don't think. Uh, Beyond that, like I said, I find some enjoyment, some sort of pleasure in this, and I haven't really explored that very deep, but I am aware of it, and the fact that I'm aware of it, maybe I'll spend some time on it. I don't Ego. I don't know about my ego. Ego is one of those things I've thought about before, and it has to do with the whole thought thing, mind, brain business. I talk about self-identity. Ego. Ego is some aspect of self-identity, right? I mean, big ego. You've certainly run across people with big egos, and we all have ego, which is another term for self-identity. I don't know. Maybe how big your self-identity is. I'm really, I don't know, something. I'm just broadcasting, throwing out words, ideas, I think concepts. But the whole point of this one was expectations. And getting an idea, or perhaps you thinking about your expectations. And we can have very unrealistic expectations. Unrealistic. Other people are not mind readers. They do not know what you were thinking, or perhaps what you just said, they didn't interpret it like you said it, and therefore cannot possibly provide the response you expect. Expectations. Don't get trapped into your expectations. And that is, talked about outside the box 47,000 times already. Expectations is a box. If all of your whatever you're doing is bounded by this wall of expectations, then it's going to be tough because you're going to be disappointed. It didn't happen like you wanted. Now you're sad, and maybe you think worthless of yourself, or you can feel alone because whatever you do doesn't meet the criteria that you defined for a proper response, or maybe you're not getting what you need, out of it. So think about your expectations and don't let them rule you, especially with uh, dealing with other people. And be careful. I have found that some people are just users. They have infinite need. Uh, Perhaps they're empathetic in a way and they can feel things, and maybe they're, you know, uh, empathic vampires. They feed off. There has been science fiction movies where entities fed off of emotions. That was the energy source for their being, was emotions of others. What a strange concept that is. But I think there are some people who are like that. They draw some sort of psychic energy from others, and they set up their relationships with you are meant to evoke emotions, and they then draw energy from that. Uh, yeah, maybe you have to be aware of that. I don't know. How are you ever aware of anything? How do you become aware of something? Uh, was expectations for this one. I got to go do real work, and I'm going to put these up again because I'm trying to emphasize how important these are. And once again, radical empathy. And if you don't know what empathy is, you should look it up. And I'm sure you know what the word radical means, but it wouldn't hurt to look in the dictionary and refresh. Maybe where did that word come from? Out of what language is that? English is a derivation of lots of other languages, which you must know. It, it was. Uh, I never get done. I don't know why. I get full. My head's full of crap, and I don't. Maybe if I'm puke enough of it out, it'll leave me alone. Maybe. I doubt it. I begin to wonder if I'm addicted to this.